Hey there, YouTube, Game from Nexus Core here finally once again with another One Piece card game video, and I am beyond excited to go over this one because as of this morning, Friday, October 28th, we finally have the full set reveal for One Piece Set 2 Paramount War, and I really don't want to waste any time here because I want to start getting into these cards. So before I start, all I want to say is a lot of these cards were revealed as of this morning, so a lot of these cards I will be reading for the first time alongside all of you. So if I get some things wrong in terms of judging it or missing something, that is why. And others I have been playing with as I've started my playtesting with Set 2 early, so I am especially excited to start with Red because if any of you have seen me on Untap, I have been experimenting a lot with the Whitebeard deck. I am having a lot of fun, and as we can already see, a lot of Whitebeard cards have been revealed, so I just want to jump right into it. So first, we have our new mono-red leader, Edward.Newgate, who is, for the first we've seen a 6 life, 6 power special attribute leader. It has the extra life and the extra base power because its effect is at the end of the turn, you add 1 card from the top of your life to your hand. Having the starting life of 6, obviously, and the base power of 6 is frankly incredible. It means your opponent needs to spend Dawn to have their leader hit and spend extra Dawn to have anything to hit, while even if you don't give your leader Dawn, your opponent needs to add at least 2k to protect them from your leader. And a thing some people have tried to explain to me that just isn't true is because it specifies you add a card from your life to your hand and not you take 1 damage, because of that, you do not lose at the end of your turn if you are at 0. Conversely, you don't get to activate triggers if you do add 1, but you do not lose if you are at 0 because all that happens is you just don't have to resolve his effect. I think that this is, of course, a very risky leader and also an A-plus flavor win because they made the strongest man in the world who is dying due to old age slowly die over time. But I think this is a very strong card, and it definitely depends on a lot of its support cards because if you are not able to make up for this risk, then what would be the point of it? So next we have a red-black leader, which is Monkey.D.Garp, who is our usual dual color leader, so 4/5 red-black, strike attribute, navy type. During your turn, when this leader and one of your characters is given a Dawn card, give up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 7 or less -1 cost during the turn. One thing that is important to note is that it does not activate for each Dawn you add, it activates for each instance of giving Dawn. This matters because in red, you have the set 1 SR Luffy that lets you attach 2 rested Dawn to itself. Because it attaches 2 at the same time, in that case, you only give -1 cost. You don't get to give -2, even though you are adding 2, because they are added at the same time. But if you have 10 Dawn and give Garp all 10 of them, you do get to give a total of -10. I think this is a solid effect. The problem is less what the effect is and more the melding of colors, because red and black don't have a lot of great overlap beyond just general good stuff staples. Not many red cards care about the character's size. Most of the things that kill based on cost, or not cost, rather by power. So because of that, you're going to have not many synergies. The only real synergies between the two are cards that can attach rested Dawn via effect, which is a good one to have, but at the same time, because you can just attach Dawn anyways, you're not going to be missing much. So I think it's a fine leader. It's just, it loses more to the colors being paired than its actual effect. And because of that, I don't think it's going to be the breakout black leader star. On to the characters, though. In alphabetical order, we have an underwhelming start with Atmos. Shout out if you actually remember this character, because Lord knows I don't. He is a 4/6 vanilla with 1000 color, counter, rather. So this is what we come to expect from vanillas, especially of its size. It is a Whitebeard pirate, so it can go in the Whitebeard deck. I mean, it's a vanilla. There isn't much to say. It really depends on how badly you want to be running vanillas in Whitebeard, which can depend a lot on how builds shape up. So, it's solid because it has a good stat line, and because Whitebeard already has the high base, being able to punch for even higher is solid. So, who can say? But it's a vanilla, so personally, I don't care for them. But on to a very strong start is the SR Edward.Newgate, who is a 9-cost power 10,000 attribute special. Type is for Emperors and Whitebeard Pirates, whose effect is on play up to one of your leaders gains 2,000 power until the start of your next turn, meaning that Whitebeard himself, the leader, would have 8k for this turn and your opponent's turn, making him very easy to protect. As well, you cannot add life cards to your hand via your own effects during this turn, so while you do have to wait until turn 5 to be able to use this effect, you do no longer have to suffer the downside of Whitebeard's negative ability. As well, he has Dawn 2. When he attacks, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with power 3,000 or less. The on-play ability alone makes this a staple for you would never run anything less, but they did give it a diet version of Robin's effect, which I think is good. Costing 2 Dawn isn't great because we have seen this effect with Robin and Beppo only costing 1, but at the same time, because he costs 9, you could theoretically play a Whitebeard and then play another Whitebeard, and then if it was only Dawn -1, you could use that 10th Dawn on the first Whitebeard you'd played to play a Whitebeard and still get that KO, so it's less, it's kind of overbalancing it, but the fact that it comes on top of that amazing on play is still absolutely worth accepting, so this is just phenomenal. Please don't consider running anything less than 4 in any Whitebeard build, for the love of God. Next, we have a uncommon Curly Dawn. Glad she got something. Cost 2, attribute / power 3, counter 1. Her type is Mountain Bandits. On play, check the top 5. Add a 1 red character with a cost of 1 and add it to your hand. Bottom of deck the rest. So this is a Nami clone for what is apparently going to be a cost 1 turbo build. As we've seen, because we have all the leaders revealed with only red one being Whitebeard, I am curious about what leader you would play in this build, but it kind of seems like it's going to be the red equivalent of, say, the Kurazumis and the Smiles for purple in set 1, where it doesn't have a leader, it's just this kind of really fun, cheeky thing you could do for cheap on the side, but it's a Nami for whatever that deck is, so it's already good. Next is King Do, with that just horrendous haircut, who is another vanilla who's 5 cost 7,000 counter 1,000 strike attribute, similar to the first one, whose name I already forgot because who cares about that character. It's a vanilla, stats are fine, definitely depends on the meta if you really want to be running a 7,000, but it can almost natively hit Kid, which is neat. Next is Thatch, who is a vanilla that can natively hit Kid because he's a 6 cost. So 6/8 counter 1,000. Again, it's a vanilla. We can just go through it. It's a Whitebeard pirate, so you can just run Whitebeard cards. Next, we have Jozu, who is a rare, who is a cost 4, power 4, counter 2,000, so already a great start. Strike attribute, whose effect is Dawn 1, which would make it the 5,000 to hit most leaders. If you have 2 or less life and your leader's type includes Whitebeard, this character gains Rush. So this is very good. The only leader this can't hit with Dawn 1 is another Whitebeard in the mirror. So because Whitebeard takes his own life anyways, you basically have a 4-cost rusher. You give him the Dawn, and he's able to hit. You don't need to put extra in. Even if it cost more, it'd still be good because it would just basically make it the Sanji, but with counter 2,000. So this is probably going to be played solely because it has that counter, but that effect is also quite solid. So if you don't see Whitebeards every single turn, this is a decent backup just to get some quick attacks out. Next is Squard, an uncommon 3/5 no counter / attribute Whitebeard Pirate allies. On play, if your leader's type includes Whitebeard, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 4,000 power, and then you add 1 card from the top of your life to your hand. I really don't like this. The stat line is fine. but not having a counter isn't great. The fact that you have to add the life, though, really hinders this. I think an on-play minus 4,000, if you have a Whitebeard, would have been fine enough. Like, I would have at the very least appreciated reducing its power a little bit for that effect, because at the end of the day, this is just two Tamas in one, and while Tama doesn't have any power, she does have 2,000 shield, and she doesn't make you lose life. And if you're at 0, you don't need to do that, but you also have to be at 0. So really, there's no real reason to be running this over Tama, especially because, as we've seen, we have vanillas with higher stats, so just look away from Squad. Next is Dogura, another of the Mountain Bandits, whose cost is 1 to fill out that line. Power 2,000, counter 1,000, slash attribute, active during the main phase. Rest this character, play up to 1 red character other than itself with a cost of 1 from your hand. I mean, that seems fine. It depends on how many cost 1s you're going to end up playing. Also, the fact that it's a cost 1, who cares? Like, it's a cost of 1. You could effectively play stuff like Luffy or Nami that let you reuse single Dawn, so you're not really losing much. The fact that you can only do it with the cost 1, I feel like it should have deserved higher stats, higher counter, or a second effect. But, I mean, hey, again, this is going to be like a budget side build. It doesn't actually mean anything, so whatever. But, I mean, you could get a free 1 onto the board if that ends up mattering. Next is Vista, who was revealed a little bit ago. Cost 3, attribute slash power 3, counter 1, type Whitebeard. On play, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. This isn't bad, but the problem is it doesn't have that high of a stat line. Robin has 1,000 more, and her effect is theoretically recyclable because it's on attack as opposed to on play. Yes, you could potentially never use it if your opponent gets rid of Robin before she can attack, and Vista's is guaranteed, but Vista's low stat line isn't not loving that, so I feel like this probably isn't going to see play just because a 3/3, even with a decent effect, isn't that amazing. Next, we have Blenheim, who is a 2/3 Whitebeard Pirate type who is a blocker. I mean, it depends on how many Whitebeard types you end up wanting to run, because you could have theoretically just run Chopper, who the power doesn't matter because it's going to be used as a blocker, so might as well run the lower cost one. But if having multiple Whitebeards does wind up mattering, then this will probably see play. Next, we have another SR revealed a little while ago. The donut joke died 10 years ago, so I'm not going to be making any in this video. So we have Portgas.D.Ace, who is a 7/7 attribute special, type Whitebeard, whose effect is on play, give up to 2 of your opponent's characters minus 3,000. Then, if your leader's type includes Whitebeard, this character gains Rush. Phenomenal, another great card. You can play it on curve, because you can play Ace and then the next turn play Whitebeard if you have the 9 cost in your hand. The fact that it gets Rush is great. It's a way of reducing your opponent's power, which is good. If you play Newgate before you play Ace, you can play Ace and then give your 2 excess Dawn to Newgate to probably kill whatever you reduce the power by, because reducing by 3,000 means the 2 Dawn effect of the 9 cost Newgate can kill anything that was previously at 6,000, which is a very good number to hit. You could target the 8-drop Kid with this to make it a base 5, which is a lot easier to hit through. If you do end up running things like Vista in this build or Robin, this makes it a lot easier to kill stuff like that. So this is a great card. Having Rush is great. I don't know how many we'll see play, because you're definitely running 4 of the 9 cost Whitebeard, and running 4 of this means you're going to have a very high curve, neither of which have blockers. So I'm currently playtesting with only 2 of it. I might be wrong and you may end up running more, but the fact that this doesn't have counter on it, which makes it balanced, but it does give me some pause in running more than 2. Next, we have Whitey Bay, cost 1, power 2, so it has that Mountain Bandit synergy. Counter 1000, attribute slash, type Whitebeard Pirate allies. Don 1, this character can also attack your opponent's active characters. This isn't a bad ability. The problem is it's on a 2000 with the Don 3000, so you could attack a low-cost blocker, theoretically, but the things that this can hit with only one Dawn attached is so narrow, you're probably going to be avoiding this. The things that Whitey Bay can attack can also be killed via 9-cost Newgate's effect anyways, so you can probably skip out on Whitey Bay. Next is Machina, 1 cost, so it has the Mountain Bandit synergy. A Wisdom attribute, 0 power, counter 2000, so it's already good for that alone. Type Windmill Village, give me that Whoop Slap leader for the love of God. Active main, you may rest this character up to one of your red characters with a cost of 1, gains 3000 power. I mean, it makes your 1 cost hit better, so sure. She has 0 power, so if this deck sees any relevancy, your opponent will just attack into it, so you're probably only using this once, but it has 2000 counter, so it's notable for that alone. Next, we have another Mountain Bandit with Magura, who's cost 1, attribute slash, power 2, counter 1, type Mountain Bandit. On play, up to one of your red characters with a cost of 1 gains 3000 power. Similar to Machina, if you're playing that 1-cost red deck, you're probably running this at 4 because on play 3000 isn't actually much to scoff at. It's a lot to scoff at because you have to give it to a 1-cost, but the fact that you for 1 Dawn you can make a 1-cost hit most things isn't actually terrible. If anything, you'd be playing Whitey Bay in this build because she's a 1-cost, so wait a minute. I've been doing this as a stream of consciousness, and that sounds really, really funny. I might actually try that out. Next, we have Mass Deuce. Shout out to the Ace Light novel. 2 cost, 3000 power, attribute Wisdom, counter 2000, so it's notable for that alone. Type Spade Pirate, so unfortunately no Whitebeard synergy. Dawn 2 on attack, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with cost or with power 2 or less. This is just worse Robin. Like, it has the counter 2000, so you might run it over Robin for that, but you typically just want to keep counter 2000s in your hand. If this is an effect you want to use, play Robin. If you just want counter, play this, but this they achieve different end goals, so you might run both if you really need that 2000 counter, but this is an effect you're probably never using, because if you want to use it, Robin's there, and so is Beppo, for Pete's sake. Next, we have Marco, who is another rare, cost 4, attribute special, power 5, counter 1, type Whitebeard Pirate. He is a blocker whose effect is on KO. You may trash a card with Whitebeard and its Pirates in its type from your hand. If you have 2 or less life, play this from your trash as rested. This is, I think, pretty decent. If we do end up running a lot of Whitebeard cards, this will likely see a lot of play. I mean, it's a decently statted blocker that can recur itself, which if your opponent's on their last or second to last attack, you're likely to use it. The fact that it comes in at rested, again, for balancing because you basically have an infinite blocker, but at the same time, the fact that you need to have 2 or less life means I think it could have had something else added to it, maybe 1 or 2 more power, but I think this is a solid card and will likely see play solely because of its good stat line. Next is Rakuyo, an uncommon, whose cost is 3, attribute is strike, power 4, counter 1, type Whitebeard Pirates. Dawn 1, during your turn, all of your characters with Whitebeard and their type gain power 1000. This is quite good, I must say. It's basically the Diaz Drake for Supernovas, but it doesn't need to be rested, so you can still theoretically use his effect the turn you play him if you have 4 Dawn. And the fact that it only works on characters isn't amazing. It would be great if this could work on your leader, but at the same time, if you have a full Whitebeard board, you can pump it up like mad. And because it says Whitebeard Pirate in the type and not excluding itself, if you have multiple, you will get a lot of power on board and to themselves. So honestly, this will likely see a decent amount of play just because being able to hit bigger is always good. Next is Little Oars Jr. Shout out to the boy. Cost 7, strike attribute, power 9, counter 1, type giant and Whitebeard Pirate allies. It's a vanilla. I don't think you're going to be running 7 cost vanilla because Ace does exist and having Rush really makes up for the 2k power difference. So I doubt this will see play, but I mean, it's there. Finally, we are on to the events, however. So the first one we have is Seaquake, which is cost 1, color red, obviously, type 4 Emperor and Whitebeard Pirate. Main, if your leader includes Whitebeard Pirates in its type, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. Trigger, give up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters minus 3,000 power during the turn. I don't know about this. Honestly, it can hit a solid amount of things, and I mean, like, it's basically, you'd probably run this over the Whitey Bay if you want to hit something low cost. This has good synergy with Ace, because you could reduce something by 3,000, and then if had 6,000 prior, for a total of 8 Dawn, you could kill something with 6,000. But also, Gum Gum Jet Pistol exists, so I don't know. The trigger isn't bad, it's good protectively, but again, it's a trigger, so kind of a toss-up of how much we should be considering that. This isn't bad by any means. I am just a bit unsure of how much play this will see, because as we're seeing, there are quite a few cards that are seeing play that have way more than 3,000 power, obviously, and the amount of 3,000 or less seems to be a bit on the decline, and that's only more so as black becomes a bigger player in the meta. So I can see this being in builds, but really as a tech slot, this isn't bad though. Next, we have another event, Whitebeard Pirates. Cost 1, type Whitebeard Pirates. Check the top 5 of your deck. Reveal up to 1 character with Whitebeard Pirates in its type. Add it to your hand, then bottom of deck the rest. Trigger, activate its main effect. So this is in 2 years at Sabaody for the Whitebeard deck. Again, another 4 of Do Not Look Back. The deck is so desperate to see the 9-cost Whitebeard and even Ace in a lot of situations. The consistency this provides is so paramount, pun intended. This deck in my playtesting has been so desperate to see the 9-cost Whitebeard. I've been running as a tech slot the I Smell Adventure Ahead, which is the Mulligan promo that you pay 1 and just mull your hand to try and see it. So any added consistency is so important that this is just beyond necessary for the build. And next we have the event You May Be a Fool, But I Still Love You. Damn, that line hits home. I don't want to be saying that and calling my therapist every time I play this card. Cost 1, type 4 Emperors and Whitebeard Pirates. Main, if you have 3 or life less, you cannot add life to your hand via your own effects. Trigger up to 1 of your leaders gains 1,000 during the turn. This, I think, is quite solid. Similar to a lot of the Whitebeard cards I've been talking about, I'm very torn about how many copies of this you'll run, because on the one hand, it's the you don't need to suffer from the leader's effect even if you don't see your leader, but at the same time, having the 3 or less life restriction kind of makes it a toss-up, because unless you let your opponent hit you, which in my experience you typically don't want to have happen, this is not going to be happening until turn 4, 3 at the earliest. So because of that, you're already going to be at 6, 7, 8 Dawn around when this is going to be seeing play. So if, for example, you're going first, turn 1, you have 1 Dawn, you go down to 5 life at the end. Turn 2, you have 3 Dawn, you go down to 4 at the end. Turn 3, you have 5 Dawn, you go down to 3 at the end, which means you have to wait until turn 4 for this to be usable, but at turn 4 is when you have 7 Dawn, so if that's what winds up happening, you're choosing between this and something like Ace, and the turn after that, you're choosing between this and Whitebeard himself, so it comes up in situations where if you're already at like 1 life and you're unsure if you want to play the 9-cost Whitebeard because of how costed it is, you can at least get the benefits of not having to lose life because it only costs 1, but at the same time, because of how much you have to how many turns you need to wait to use this card, it kind of makes it a bit of a toss-up. It's definitely worth play testing. It's just kind of similar to some of the other Whitebeard cards. I can't really see at this moment running more than 2, but I think 2 is at the very least a good number just because it adds another layer of protection. So, yeah, there's not really much more to say. I think it's worth play testing. The trigger is fine. It makes Whitebeard a 7K, which is good. So, yeah, that's it. Lastly, we have our first stage, which I'm very glad to see because we didn't get any stages in set 1, so I thought it was a forgotten about mechanic. Whoopsie. So we have the Moby Dick, which is a cost 2 stage, Whitebeard Pirate in its type. Your turn, if you have 1 or less life cards, Edward.Newgate and all of your characters, including Whitebeard in their type, gain 2,000, and trigger, you may play this card. Again, I keep saying this, don't know how much play this will see. The fact that you need 1 or less life kind of makes this questionable, because even though it costs 2, you can play this turn 2 or turn 1 even if you go second, but it isn't doing anything for a lot of turns and it's just going to be sitting there. So it's a solid effect. Being able to have your whole board basically get 2,000 for free in the late game for your turn is great. I just kind of wish that because it has that life restriction, it had something else along the lines of like reducing your, instead of 2,000 during your turn, it would be like 1,000 during both turns or something like that. Maybe even remove the trigger to balance it. But the blanket 2,000 is great. If you have Rakuyo, it's basically a blanket 3,000 to the board, which makes for a very strong punch. And as I'm realizing that potential, you're probably not running the vanillas because it's pretty easy to make things hit vanilla numbers. So, this is, again, probably worth a tech slot. We'll see. But the fact that you have to wait and it isn't searchable, for example, off of the Whitebeard Pirate event, because it only searches for characters, makes this kind of a toss-up. As we got spoiled for the green, though, this is going to be the last card for the Reds, and that is going to mean I'm going to call it for the video. I got to say, last thoughts, I am very excited for the Whitebeard deck. So many of these cards are so neat to me. I think the deck is very fun. I think it has a solid amount of potential, especially now that it has consistency issues resolved thanks to the Whitebeard Pirate event card for the Whitebeard Pirates. So stuff like that means this is just, I'm very excited to play test this and see what we get out of it. One thing that I am actually kind of interested by is we of course got the Mountain Bandit cost 1 deck, but we didn't get a single Straw Hat card in red. We didn't really get any support for any of the previous red builds, which I'm kind of curious about. I thought we would have at least gotten a couple of other cards here or there, something related to like helping the Zoro deck or whatever, but I mean, who can say? But yeah, I think that is going to wrap it up for me, and you will be seeing my reviews of all of the other colors coming in soon. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.